We're hot.
Mothership has landed. Pirate Radio. Welcome to the jungle.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the broken down, low rent, sleazy, double greasy Pirate Radio Nut Hut Studios, it's time for the very first ever Southern.
Standing by, over. This is all fighting. Standing by, over.
Right now, it's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines,
clock's run out. Time's up.
Wind is blowing cold and dark. On the road and no way out. Broken hearts, a smoking gun. On the run. On the run.
Boldly go where no man has gone before. But outer space has other plans. And now, their mission has changed.
There's just one thing I want.
Revenge, Captain?
Why not?
Introducing the 9th film by Quentin Tarantino.
What were your orders, Kirk? To start a war? You've succeeded.
They meant to bring peace to the galaxy.
This will be your final battlefield.
They brought their pieces instead. It's a galaxy of green blood, green women, and Nazis.
Tell me your orders. You were sent here to kill our Führer. Confess. What in blazes is this?
Captain Kirk, the captain's log isn't the only wood he's packing.
Captain.
Mr. Spock, half Vulcan, half human, full killing machine. Bones, this doctor is the real McCoy. Uhura, sending out vibes on all frequencies. Sulu, deadly at the helm, even deadlier with a blade. Chekhov, one badass mother Russian. And Scotty, he'll give you all he's got.
I didn't say the Enterprise should be hauling garbage.
It should be hauled away as garbage.
Set your phasers to thrill.
Keep your f***ing hands off me.
In this final frontier, their prime directive is to kill. Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek. Voyage to Vengeance.
My name is Jimmy. This Aftermath FM. It's Thursday night, the night before New Year's Eve. Welcome, Clyde Lewis listeners. Got a whole table of people here tonight. Be talking about a few different things, but I want to welcome you in and let you know Into the Microcosm is on the air. Epic Journeyman. Are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. It's good to see you, man. Only one day left of this year. This goddamn year. It won't end. But tomorrow it will end. And then thank God it's over, man. You know
That'll be the day they invent time travel. It'll just go forever.
You're frozen. It's a Groundhog Day, sucker. Oh, man. So are you still there? I just want to make sure I didn't hang up on everybody when I just closed that window. Okay, good.
Here,
yeah, so, tomorrow it's the end. And not like I say, not a moment too soon. Lots of memorable moments this past year that we'll get into tomorrow night. We got a cavalcade of buddies, friends, and coming on by for the new year. We're going to have the open line, so you can give us a call. Tell us what your predictions are maybe for tomorrow. See, maybe we've got your prediction. But tonight, we got Brandy Lou's here, and Nase is here. And I think he's calling himself a Paleo-American now, but we like to call them Native Americans around here, because that's what we're used to calling them. American Indians, ladies and gentlemen, the native peoples of the land. And we're going to talk to Nase about some of the stuff that's been going on. So, Epic Journeyman, since last night, since we talked, there's been more of this weather, man. The weather's nonstop right now, isn't it? This is going out of control.
It is. Something's going to happen. It seems like it's going to try to outdo everything else, that's happened so far for the year. I don't know how to get outdo the scorpions that got swept into Egyptian homes during the thunderstorm, though. That's a good one. I was reading about some of the things that happened because of weather this year. Yeah. And that's the most horrifying one, The 3 people died from scorpion stings.
Well, let's say hello. Let's say hello to Brandy Lou. Brandy Lou, are you there? She is not there.
They have scorpions over there, in Texas.
No. I am here.
Oh, there she is. Okay, there you are. I see.
Here.
I saw you. You must have.
I was running away from the scorpions.
You're getting a piece of carrot cake over there. I saw you.
Yeah, you caught me.
So how's it going?
Actually, it's the eggnog.
Yeah, I know. Well, the eggnog season is just about over, and not a moment too soon, if you ask me. Now let's grab Nase. Nase, Anishinaabe, are you there?
Bonjour, Anin, Nase Indigenikaz Anishinaabe, Minowa, Kevin Richard Shores, Indigenikaz Jaganashi Moog, Makwa Nindunde, Minowa Nindo Getchida, Akib Minowa, Gawa Babi Ganikag, and Dun Jiba, Minowa, Moorhead, Minnesota, Nungum Day, Chi Miigwich, Gitchi Manadu, Ganikana, Pegish Minobima, the Z Way Riyad. Hello and hi, y'all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh yeah, great. So how are you doing? So we got one more year left of this 2021. Now, we're there's been this uptick over the past 3 or 4 weeks of severe weather going on. What about where you are, Nase? Now you're in Minnesota, correct?
Northern Minnesota.
So now, are you covered with snow at this point, or no?
Yes, we're covered with snow. Last night, the high was -6, and the low was -16.
Okay.
It was a little bit warmer today.
Well, in contrast, there was literally a firestorm in Boulder, Colorado today. They haven't had any precipitation or moisture there since July, and 30,000 people were evacuated. I saw a video earlier, people at the grocery store. The smoke is so thick you can't see. There's literally 110 mile an hour winds blowing. Okay, yesterday I saw a video from Indonesia where a microburst happened, and there was video of dudes literally flying off their feet. It looked like the Wizard of Oz, man. Literally. Waves crashing, giant, huge waves being surfed all over the world right now. literally, it's almost uncanny now. What about in Texas, Brandy? Anything going on where you are?
Well, I was joking on my show the other day. It was 86 degrees inside my house on Christmas Day. So I just put some ice in the hot apple cider, and it was miserable. It was our highest, I guess, it was a record-breaking heat. Crazy.
All right, well, Epic Journeyman, what have you discovered as far as some of these weather atrocities that have been going on? I don't know what else to call them, man.
Well, yeah, they are atrocities. Like we remember the recent tornadoes in Kentucky, right? I mean, that's never happened in December, let alone a class 4 F4 tornado that late in the year. I mean, it's never happened in that part of the world. But there's things like the temperature we're talking about. Alaska, Kodak Island, Alaska, like yesterday, it was 67 degrees. It's the hottest it's ever been. And it's the hottest ever been on record for a good span of time, like from October through March, something like that, by 20 degrees. In other words, the previous high was only 47 degrees this time of year. So we're not talking about a little bit of deviance. This is a huge amount of deviance from what the former all-time high was. 20 degrees is a lot.
Yeah, well, and now there's Brazil is under the gun, water everywhere, man. Literally, people are like, roping themselves across buildings, whatever. I mean, I was looking at these people, and they were on these ropes, and they were trying to get from one building to the other. And I'm looking at the picture, and the people down below, they're standing there, and they're like, the water's knee deep. And I'm wondering, water's only knee deep, man. Why are they going through all this roping and all this, to get people from one building to the other without getting their legs wet or whatever? I don't know, but it just looked intense, man. Houses were floating by, cars. When there's so much water coming, it just gets to this point where the cars become buoyant. You're cool up until that point, right? And then cars become buoyant, they lift, and they start floating away. And at that point, you lose all control of your car, right? So there's a whole bunch of that going on.
Can you imagine doing the rapids in San Francisco? Like you're in your Ultima. Next thing you know, you're like going down the rapids. Going through the streets every single intersection is a rock in the river. You know what I mean? And that big SUV in your way, or that parked semi with the gas on the back, right? The big gas truck, fuel truck is the thing that's in your way. No paddle, just at the whim of the flowing river. I mean, that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. It's like that tsunami they had in Japan. I mean, that's what it looked like. I was seeing when Jimmy sent those photos or that film clip to me yesterday. I thought it was tsunami in Japan. That's what I thought it was.
Well, Freethinker59 in the chat room over in Microcosm Jimmy Jean Strike Zone says it's the hottest warmest weather they've ever had in Florida in a while. The warmest winter. So I mean, being warm in Florida is not something you would consider extreme weather, but just to have everything being out of whack, and just going in different, directions than it normally does, or does it? I mean, I don't know. Naysay, are the native elders, are they saying anything? I mean, are they talking now? Are they saying, have they noticed something? Is there some kind of, native, signatory thing that they see that will signify something is about to take place? Is there prophecies around this weather? Is there anything going on? Let us know from the native, or what do you guys call? What are you calling yourself now? Paleo American?
Well, I call myself Anishinaabe. Because in our language we call ourselves Anishinaabe. The French called us Ojibwe. The English called us Chippewa. But in the language, it is Anishinaabe. And our territory was 1/3 of North America, was the Anishinaabe, from pretty much around Washington, D.C., all the way across east or west to the Mississippi, and up the Mississippi and west into Canada and back to the East Coast. That entire area where That was my ancestors' land and down the Mississippi. And we, the Anishinaabe, we utilize the recognition of cycles for our calendar. Our actual new year starts in the spring equinox. And if we look at somewhat of the calendar system or a significant of time measurement or denotating the cycle, we have the basic night and day, and then we have the zenith of the moon or the zenith of the sun, and then we have the moon cycle, whether new moon to new moon or full moon to full moon, and then we have the greater cycle of the year, and we start our year in the spring. So we kind of count our existence in how many winters we have survived. So this spring will be my 55th winter of surviving. And so when we recognize the cycles, we will see that there are many different signs available to make a accurate assumption or a theory of what the following year is going to bring upon us. Whether if it's like looking at the squirrels and how fat they're getting in the fall, to the animals and how thick their layers of fat are when it comes to hunting and such. And we discuss where Mother Earth, Aki, goes through a cycle of change. The only thing that is absolute is change. And if you recognize the cycle of change, you will see these moments of potential cataclysmic changes. And we are going through one of these changes as we talk, and because of this change of what's occurring, the combination of the electromagnetic pole shift and the actual shifting or tilting of our spheroidal planet, I guess.
So have you noticed anomalies now with the seasonal transformations and also the solstice happening on the day that it says is supposed to happen, or is it not really happening when it says? Are things lined up the way they're supposed to be?
Well, they're following the cycles, but if you step back and generalize it as a average, it's beyond average. A lot of people, easily can contest that, hey, things are not as they usually are. Now, one of the things that's beautiful about my ancestors, we have these, what are commonly called medicine wheels. And these medicine wheels are found throughout Anishinaabe land and throughout the world. If you look at Adam's calendar, it's almost the same as our medicine wheel. So these medicine wheels are lined up in accordance to the 7th directions. And with that alignment, they'll use that where in the center of the wheel is a post, and that post in its shadow will give you a data of the cycle, whether it's the shadow of the sun or the shadow of the moon. Now, on White Earth, Gawabapiganikog, which is in northern Minnesota, it was created in 1867, and it was called the Great Experiment, where the dominant society wanted to assimilate the Anishinaabe people into good Americans or farmers. And our powwow ground, which is over 153 years, the powwow grounds have been there in alignment with the summer solstice. And so if you think of it as an allegory of a clock, so 12 would be north, 6 would be south, 3 would be east, and 6 would be west. the alignment of the summer solstice is that on the dawn of the summer solstice, the sun will rise at 3 o'clock and will set at 9 o'clock. And this is the whole allegory of life, of rising and falling and darkness and light and all of that. So when I learned about this in 1998, 97, an elder taught me about this lesson. One of my favorite things is to sit in the east gate at sunset and have a little bungie, a plug-in, a same cigarette, tobacco, and I would watch the sun set in the western door. Now, you have to take an account of a little bit of wiggle room because the solstice does not listen to our Gregorian calendar. The earth and the sun, they're not like texting each other and saying, hey, look, their calendar says on the 21st of December, we have to get in alignment. So let's go and appease these ridiculous humans. So the sun and the earth, they align when they align. And if you look at the definition in the Northern Hemisphere, the winter solstice is denoted by the shortest day and the longest night. And this occurred actually the second week of December and not December 21st, if you pay attention and you start calculating such things. So that in itself is off. But one thing I noted.
Go ahead. So, but I gotta say that is the longest I've ever asked somebody what time it was, and they told me how the watch was made. You have won the award, for a lifetime award, Nase, for that lengthy explanation. Now, let me ask you this: we're about getting ready to go to a break, so before we do, let me ask you now: are things lined up the way they should be? Because we've been talking about it the last couple days, and we've been thinking that we're feeling like we're getting close to some sort of a magnetic shift, and that this weather is a direct result of some of that. Now, we're thinking that the stars, planets, and bodies line up, and so that's the celestial clock is moving day by day. But when these certain things line up, native peoples from around the world, as well as these secret societies, all know when the clock is about to strike, and we're 100 seconds away from midnight on the doomsday clock right now. So have you noticed anything different with the skies, Nase?
Well, that's where I was going with it and bringing it back. So as I would sit in the east door and watch the sun set in the western door, I started noticing in 2001 that every year the sun was setting more and more to the north than directly west. And so I started tracking this. And from what I was told last summer at the powwow, that the sun is practically 45 degrees off from its normal setting in the direct western door. And so the powwow ground has not changed. It's remained the same. So the only way that the sun can set more in the north is if the whole tectonic plates or the earth itself has shifted. So if you think of a map and you rotate that map counterclockwise 45 degrees, this is what has happened according to the setting sun at the White Earth Powwow grounds.
So you get a sense of momentum. Like what I'm getting at is you're telling that story, and I kind of thought of the idea of being on a oval racetrack in a way. Like, you're in the straightaway and things are accelerating, you're going a certain speed, and then all of a sudden you feel the turn as you lead into the turn, And then you lean into the turn, the sun you feel on your back is in a different part of your shoulder as you go into the turn, and you feel the light coming through the window or whatever, the heat, right? Is that what you sense is something like that? Like you feel like you're in the middle of some kind of momentous change. By that I mean actually a change of direction.
Well, this is the other quick answer, yes. And if you look at the medicine wheel of the indigenous people, the Paleo-Americans, it is either a cross in a circle, but the Anishinaabe, their medicine wheel is a X within a circle. And the teachings of the Buan people and the Anishinaabe people talk about the correlation of the cross and the X and the movement of the planet and the sun and the moon if you were to calculate or collect the data as it progresses through the cycles.
Right. So what I was thinking, we talked a bit about this lately, about the idea of the galactic plane and how we accelerate along this axis, and most of the time it's steady. Most of the time it's like we imagine a circular orbit, we don't really notice any change because it's a constant, a constant lean, if you will, into that orbit, right, the whole time. So the Earth is always at that particular axis, leaning in a particular angle, right, and everything. When the only time things change is during the seasons, and north goes to south, south goes north, get more light up north, more light up south, etc., and then it's just a constant cycle. But the idea that we might be in an elliptical orbit, and that there's a smaller turnaround spot on both far ends of that, is why I brought that up. So that if we are in an elliptical orbit along that galactic plane, our relationship with the sun, the moon, and all those things are generally the same. But as we speed through and come into that turn, that is these 12,000-year cycles, essentially. Don't have any truth to it. I'm just saying it's one of the things that actually kind of makes a little bit of sense, in which case you would feel and see a difference. I mean, the speed relative to the sun is the same, but our speed on the plane, our acceleration as we go around that elliptical end of the turn will be noticed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you recognize the cycle, the greatest gift we have as silly humans is pattern recognition. And if you pay attention to the patterns, then you can make the calculations to change course. And of course, because, how can anybody pay attention when distraction is for free?
That's true. We'll be right back. Aftermath FM.
Black and orange stray cats sitting on the fence. Ain't got enough dough to pay the rent. I'm flat broke, but I don't care. I strut right by with my tail in the air. Stray cat strut, I'm a feeling Casanova. Hey, man, that's get a shoe thrown at me from a mean old man. Get my dinner from a garbage can.
No.
Yeah, don't cross my path.
Tis the season, and to celebrate, in the month of December, Ground Zero and Aftermath.fm are offering magnificent deals for listeners. Check it out. For the entire month of December, fans of Ground Zero can get an exclusive membership for only $49 for the year. And that's not all. Premium memberships are only $79 for the year. Need some stocking stuffers? Well, we have something for that too. A premium friends and family plan is just $129 for the year. All memberships include access to all of Ground Zero's archived shows. That's thousands of hours of Ground Zero on demand. You'll have complete access to the document libraries and research groups, and you'll have full participation in a monthly Zoom chat with the man himself, Clyde Lewis. So what are you waiting for? Come on over and take advantage of these great Christmas deals right now. For more information, head on over to aftermath.media right now. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
After about a month of Extendovite, I don't know what it is about the circulation factor, I was able to increase the weight, increase the amount of sets I could do. It has to do with the oxygen getting to the blood. You should market this as an athletic performance. And I don't change anything about my diet or anything. I just thought, this is amazing. Bilberry extract is got something called resveratrol in it, which is the same stuff that you get from red wine.
Hi,
it's also good for eyesight. And I was reading that the Royal Air Force during World War II would give their pilots bilberry jam so they could have better night vision stuff. This is amazing.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Train rolling, it's coming straight from hell. I heard a whistle scream and I heard somebody yell. Have you heard about that train? What's that train? That hellbound train. Hellbound train. Have you heard about that train? That hellbound train.
Hellbound train. Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific, right here, Aftermath FM exclusively.
Ooh, steel grinding, black soul pumping, burning, blazing coal. Your evil, wicked, ghastly train is coming for your soul. Have you heard about that train? What's that train? That hellbound train. Hellbound train. Have you heard about that train? That hellbound train.
This is the hellbound train, leaving station from 2021, heading into 2022. What's gonna happen? Who knows? I'm on the edge of my seat. And who knows, maybe by next year, it'll be like it happened to somebody else. I don't know, man. Literally, things are out of control. We're touching a little bit on the weather. We're bringing naysay into the conversation as far as the people, the native people who understand the celestial clock in a way that the modern man just doesn't have the potentiality to understand. Because he's too busy sitting out in his backyard barbecuing and watching steaks and ribs instead of looking up in the sky and seeing how it's lining up with the apex of his shed. Everything they built, it seems, in antiquity was lined up astronomically and astrologically for a lot of people. The stars were the guides. Across the sea, epic journeyman. Can you dead reckon yourself in a 30-footer from Hawaii to California?
I reckon I can if I had all the right equipment. I can't just look up at the stars and do it.
No.
And that's the thing is like the ancient Polynesians who got here and settled Hawaii. You got to remember what badasses these people were, loading up a couple gourds and, some fish, dried fish and stuff on some basically canoes with the sail and going out across the sea, navigating by the stars and by the tides, by the actual, they could see the current. They could actually see the currents, knew the changes in the currents, knew where they're at. I mean, it takes years of observation and being generationally taught in a way to have that kind of knowledge. I mean, sure, anybody can learn it with a book today, but the way it was done back then, passed on and imparted to people through, the family and through growing up and learning that kind of way, like as a an apprentice in a way. This kind of knowledge is just passed on to you. It's something that all ancient cultures that survived for any length of time had. It was something about respecting your elders and about that knowledge of the we'll call it the tribe, but in a way, that's the only way we can describe it, in a sense. This knowledge that is inherent to your culture.
Well,
right?
and the thing about it is too is that this kind of a journey made by somebody, it's almost a metaphor for life, man. Because seriously, when you set out on a journey like that, most people don't survive, and if you do survive it, okay, that's called wisdom. I mean, anybody, can get in a canoe and paddle out into the ocean. That's knowledge, Being able to make it to where you're going alive, that's where you get
make it twice. That's the big one, right?
That's where you get your wisdom, right? So, a young person without the advantage of having the wisdom of the ancient knowledge passed down from generation to generation, lip to ear, and taught, you find yourself in angry seas past the point of no return, man. And I swear you can go on YouTube anytime you like and take a look at some of these guys that sail from California to Hawaii in small boats, 24-footers, 30-footers, all by themselves, sitting in their little boat in the middle of the ocean with all this banging noise going on and waves crashing over the top of their little boats. And they're just laying on the floor in the dark, hoping that, the alarm doesn't go off and they have to come up on board and take a look around and see if there's a giant tanker ship, just minutes away from them. It's literally, when you're going on a trip like that, it's literally life and death, man, because you make one mistake. It could be your last fatal mistake. You jumped for it, but you just missed it. And poof.
It fell overboard.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you didn't tie yourself off, and now you float away. And giant great whites come up from underneath you and just, you're nothing but, like when the war happened over there, Epic Journeyman in Hawaii? Weren't there like a bunch of floating torsos? Like people would just come up to him and go to grab Bob, but there's nothing left to Bob below the water. He's just bobbing up and down,
Yeah, that's the story of the Indianapolis, right? Yeah, 1,100 and some odd people, I believe it was, went in the water. Only 400 and something came out. And they were out there for an incredible amount of time. It's actually amazing. I think it was nearly 3 weeks. And they were just getting torn up by sharks the whole time. And there was only so many lifeboats, right? So only so many people fit in the boat. Everybody else would take turns if they're doing the right thing and jump in the water where everybody else would get in, or the injured people would stay in the boat, right? And with the amount of rations they had, which is very little to even survive to be rescued at all, is amazing. But that is a story.
It is.
Those people, they'd be under life vests, and somebody swim up to them and go grab them, go hit, hey, what's up, Bob? No pun intended. And then you have to flip over. There's no legs. There's nothing left.
Yeah, I know. But, here's the thing. Modern society, when you get in your car and go from point A to point B, and you're commuting to work every day, you're traversing this route. You start off and, you got to be at work at 9, but you got to leave at work at 7. And it takes you 2 hours of grinding it out all the way to your job. And not 2 hours, man, just getting to where you're going. Man, it's almost like sailing the 7 seas, man. Because, it's an adventure. You may not make it home that day. By the time you get home, it's like a 12-hour day. You fight the traffic all the way to work. You go to work. You come home. You fight the traffic all the way home. You go to the grocery store. And all those times and all that every day. We're just on the precipice of just making a mistake. That's a fatal mistake that you can't recover from. And so it's precarious. The fact that we all made it here right now, we're all sitting here, the audience, us, everyone, TalkStream Live, Aftermath FM, YouTube, everybody, we're all got here. It's literally a miracle in this modern society.
Well, it's like they say, your life is the difference of a breath. And that 1 second, I was driving down the freeway a few weeks ago, and somebody just decided that they needed to be in my lane. And if I hadn't been looking that very second, to see them, I wouldn't have been able to respond, and it probably would have killed me based on what was going on around me. You never know. So that's why I say we always have to just be thankful for what we have. Even if stuff is going really difficult or we're really stressed out, always find something. There's got to be something positive in there.
Yeah, man. I mean, the journey that we make in life is really, defines, who we're going to be. Some people go down the well-beaten track. Other people go off the path into the weeds, and blaze a new path, and every day is an adventure. And, it's really no different. You're forging a trail to go. It's like being an explorer every day, isn't it? You forge a trail from your house to the place where you're going to go get your food, your money, bring it back. And, it's a battle, man, they say. Isn't it?
The Anishinaabe, we called it the Bimadazi Wewiyan, the path, your path. And it's your path, and it's going to be of positivity and negativity and neutrality, but it's your path to experience. And we collectively being here together, we should take notice to our elders, to those individuals that have had these experiences on their path, because who knows, maybe there's a lesson to be heard that could assist you on your path. Because if you go into the woods and there's a sign that says, hey, saber-toothed tigers are here, do you really want to go into those woods unprepared to possibly cross paths with such a thing? And that's the same as recognizing the cycles, because here in the Northern Hemisphere, we are now in winter, where it's going to be the coldest time of the year. So did we prepare properly to make it through the winter so we can survive? Because it is, it is not easy to survive the winter, because we are not genetically equipped to just go out in the winter and survive it. We don't have fur, we don't have fat, we have this passed on knowledge of tools of creating dwellings or creating electricity or burning wood or doing what is necessary to survive. So it's the excitement of existing, and I'm extremely thankful and fortunate for it, because I'm not really up to the alternative of living.
Well, we went into the darkest night of the year, all right? Now we're starting to come back, all right? It's the resurrection, okay? And we'll come back, and 2022 is coming. It's right around the corner. Tomorrow night will be the Aftermath FM ringing in the new year on the West Coast party. You're all welcome. We'll open up the phones. I think I'm going to open up the phones a little bit later tonight too. And I want to bring, some to the table in a bit here. We're getting, what time is it? We got about 15 minutes left before the bottom of the hour. Epic Journeyman, when the new year comes, it's a time for us to, set forth a new path, to burn a new path into the future. And, right now, just given the tonality of the world itself, it's been really negative. And hopefully we can find a way to light some sort of positivity at the beginning of the year to kind of help us get through, because I think you probably know, and they say the Mercury retrograde's coming up pretty quick right as we get into the beginning of the year. There's all these things happening, and so we're on the precipice. Does it make any difference where we are, Epic Journeyman? Can we forge our way out? with our own mental capacity, our own fortitude, our own internal dialogue? Can we quiet the storm? Can we step away from the noise? Can we get out of the echo chamber?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, as far as you're not gonna escape knowing the season and knowing the passage of time. Observation will show you that. But as far as being away from the influence of everything else, it occupies 90% or more of our time. I mean, we're literally thinking about, when I say of our time, it's not the time that's passing. It's the time we spend with our consciousness focused on something. And it's all something that's derived from someone else most of the time. If you're caught up in the world we live in today, it's some kind of media, it's some kind of derivative thing that wants to get you to motivate to do something for someone else, basically, right? It's not something you would do on your own, whether it be work, whether it be buying something, whether it be watching TV, whatever it is, right? It was directed at attention. And you wouldn't do that if you could be divorced from it. The only way to really be divorced from it is to literally live off the land. I mean, literally be just away from it. You can still do that. It's possible. It is. But if you do that, you'll still, what will be your point of reference will still be these things that are ancient. The position of the sun, the moon, the stars, the passage of time, and the worldly sense directly related to the earth, right? Yeah, so is it worth it? I don't know. I think it might be.
Yeah, I think so too. I think for a lot of reasons, overall, I think, if the internet is food, and food is medicine, then I think, serving yourself up a heap and helping of some healing off the internet is just as powerful as the other information that's up there. But it seems like the healing part of the internet doesn't get as much traction as the negativity. In other words, you could have two videos sitting right next to each other. One of them has negativity in the title, and the other one has something, something for you to help yourself. I think 8 out of 10 people will click on that negative one, just simply because we've been trained to consume negativity like sugar. It's like
gravitas.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like drinking a
Yeah.
soda. You know what I mean? It's like when people quit drinking. The thing is there's something that happens when you drink alcohol, which is there's a sugar intake, and because you lose that sugar intake, lots of people when they quit drinking, they start drinking lots of sodas, man, to get that sugar. It's the same thing. Is the negativity on the internet's like sugar, man. It's like white sugar. It's like totally addictive, because you get that rush, when you're doom scrolling, you get that rush, that pucker in your lower extremities as, the storyline and the narrative gets deeper and uglier. It has to get uglier and uglier because, a certain level of ugliness becomes, blasé after a while. It has to get more and more intense for it to have any kind of register, because we need like more and more sugar. It's like I started out putting 1 teaspoon of sugar in my coffee, and then after that I didn't taste it. I need 2, then I need 3. You know what I mean? So it's an ongoing addiction for a lot of people, because the thing is when the end is near, you don't have to take responsibility for the present. So lots of people want to entertain a negative end because it's too much to deal with on a daily basis. Some people want to live in the end because they don't want to take responsibility for how the life is now. So the thing is that if the end is near, why be sad? In other words, wouldn't that be the time to party it up? I'm just saying. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I'm there's a movie out right now. I haven't watched it. It's being advertised Don't Look Up, right? It's being referenced in all these regular mainstream news channels and in your feeds everywhere on social media. And, I'm probably going to end up watching to check it out. And it's basically an asteroid's coming. The premise I get is it's a combination of Idiocracy and, name any other disaster movie, but where the world's going to end. I mean, that's basically the premise. So I'll check it out. But I think that the premise that we're talking about today, whether that movie actually portrays it, what we're talking about, it is relevant. What matters is this idea of, as long as there's always a doomsday imminent, you don't have to face the day.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything.
Look at how many people. I'm sorry. Look at how many people back in 2012, when they thought the world was going to end, there were people that were actually selling their belongings, giving up their jobs, going and living as if it really was going to be like that. Or even if you think about cults that were involved in, a doomsday sort of story that this terrible thing was going to happen, so they needed to do some wild thing, like drink red Kool-Aid and kill yourself, or wait for the aliens to come down. I mean, it's sort of like this, almost like a strange, sick coping skill that's being used to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is if you just give into it, you just give into it, into the negativity of it, and just, dive into the river and go with the flow, or, you can go against the flow, or you can get out of the river. The river is an important, aspect of any life. You guys, anybody on the panel, have you read Siddhartha? Herman Hesse book, Siddhartha. There's a book. Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to bring it to the table tonight on the show because it talks a lot about the river in that book. And there's a point where he crosses the river in that book, and we'll talk about it. There's a ferryman who takes Siddhartha across the river, and Siddhartha's a seeker just like a lot of us are. We're all seekers, and he goes on a journey in his life, and it's a fantastic book. It was popular in the 60s, going into the 70s. So was another book by the same author called Steppenwolf, and there's another book called Damien. Those three books, Damien, Steppenwolf, and Siddhartha, are really transformational books in the sense that when you go through the journey of those three books, it's really sort of the journey that a man goes through. Nothing personal if you're not a man, but these are, it's written from a male perspective. So, these are periods in a man's life. Steppenwolf is sort of a middle age. Damien is, more of a child, adolescent. Siddhartha is more of a, 20, in your 20s kind of thing, I would say.
In my experience, I find it quite interesting how potentially beneficial it is when an entity can find a reason, excuse, or justification for what they've done or what they haven't done. Whether someone might say, hey, Mercury is in retrospect, Daddy spanked me too much, Mommy didn't hug me, my underwear are too tight, I stepped in a pile of dog poo today. It's easy, and when we realize that our eyes have not told us the truth, and we need a coping mechanism where attitude is everything, because in the simplification, I like to say, keep it simple, I am stupid. And to make it simplex, we got positive, neutral, and negative. And out of those three states of being, I think we can agree there's two of them that we would rather choose than negativity, because also in my experience, when you get caught up in negativity, darkness, it is not easy to get out of it. So that is the challenge with the entertainment or the media world, where they're continuously bombarding us with this negativity, because the expression of trying to look away from an accident. Well, if I can see this incident occurring, and if it's worse than my state of being right now, I feel better. So we tend to look at the negativity in the vein that it's worse than what we are in right now.
Yeah.
So it makes existence a little easier.
Well, I got to say, I mean, when I was going through my cancer treatment and I was, going through a hard time, I used to listen to Alex Jones, and because what was going on that show was worse than what I was going through. You know what I mean? I mean, so the thing is that if there's some beacon that we can look at that's worse than our situation, it makes our situation seem not as bad. So there again, it gives us another outlet for not taking responsibility for what's going on in our lives right now in this minute. It's like to give up and say, oh, well, why should I do anything? It's all going to end anyway. Why should I? Forget about it. All right. Go ahead, Nissa.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nissa.
Well, I was just going to say, I label them the powers that should not be, and they rely on our complacency and the lack of motivation to continue their control and gain of power. Mm-hmm. And when you research this stuff, whether it be within political realms or behind the scenes realms, an example, the Brookings Institute, basically a think tank where they get together and they say, if A happens, our contingency plan is A DAC 529, whatever, and one of the things that they reported is that in the event of some cataclysmic things to occur, if they knew that it was going to happen, to keep the continuity of government, i.e. control and power, they would not notify us of this. But then as you look as politics has happened, and with the people in the black uniforms of German descent, and how they remain power and stuff, they found out early that if they can keep us in a state of fear, then it's a little bit easier to keep that power and that control.
It's amazing that you're bringing up these systems of control, because there's a guy, he's kind of Christopher Walken-ish, and he's got himself a channel over on YouTube, all right? And it's a new channel. He's only had one subscriber, okay? This channel is called Systems of Control. Here's a little sample, and go on over and subscribe. He's got a new channel. He's trying to shed some light on systems of control. This video's only gotten 8 views, so go on, check it out. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I think you'll get something out of this information. My name's Jimmy. It's Into the Microcosm.
Hello, and today I'm going to be explaining more information on systems of control. Now, if you listened to last lesson, we learned about systems of control, that you create a system of control that people must obey. You lead others with your system of control in compliance with the great system of control, which lifts you up and sets you free. Here we have the Antichrist system of control, and now I'm going to show you an example of an opposing system of control. See how it's upside down. This is a good system of control that is in compliance with the great system of control. This is an opposing system of control. Now, I'll show you what I got in the mail today. What does this look like? This is a system of control. See, this is a scam. They are not offering any actual coverage of my vehicle. They don't even specifically say what my vehicle is. There's a lot of generic stuff in here that keeps just saying that we have the Antichrist system of control, and now I'm going to show you an example of an opposing system of control. See how it's upside down? This is a good system of control. This is in compliance with the great system of control. This is an opposing system of control. That people must obey. You lead others with your system of control in compliance with the great system of control, which lifts you up and sets you free. Here we have the Antichrist system of control. And now I'm going to show you an example of an opposing system of control.
Be right back.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
'Tis the season, and to celebrate, in the month of December, Ground Zero and Aftermath.fm are offering magnificent deals for listeners. Check it out. For the entire month of December, fans of Ground Zero can get an exclusive membership for only $49 for the year. And that's not all. Premium memberships are only $79 for the year. Need some stocking stuffers? Well, we have something for that too. A premium friends and family plan is just $129 for the year. All memberships include access to all of Ground Zero's archived shows. That's thousands of hours of Ground Zero on demand. You'll have complete access to the document libraries and research groups, and you'll have full participation in a monthly Zoom chat with the man himself, Clyde Lewis. So what are you waiting for? Come on over and take advantage of these great Christmas deals right now. For more information, head on over to aftermath.media right now. Again, that's
It's Aftermath FM.
Darkness, darkness, be my pillow. Take my hand and let me sleep in the coolness of your shadow, in the silence of your deep. Darkness, darkness, hide my yearning keep my mind from constant turning toward the things I cannot see now. Things I cannot see now. Things I cannot see. Darkness, darkness, long and lonesome.
Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific, right here, Aftermath FM. It's into the microcosm. Tonight, Naysay, Brandy, Epic Journeyman's here. I'm here, you're here, we're all here.
Darkness, darkness, leave me blanket. Cover me with.
We made it.
Take away the pain of knowing. Feel the emptiness of right now. Emptiness of right now. Emptiness of
Politicians, captains of industry, and how would you convince them? With data, facts? Good luck. The only facts they won't challenge are the ones that keep the wheels greased and the dollars rolling in. But what if there was a way of skipping the middleman and putting the critical news directly into everyone's head? The probability of widespread annihilation kept going up. The only way to stop it was to show it. Scare people straight. Because what reasonable human being wouldn't be galvanized by the potential destruction of everything they've ever known or loved? To save civilization, I would show its collapse. But how do you think this vision was received? To the prospect of imminent doom. They gobbled it up like a chocolate eclair. They didn't fear their demise, they repackaged it. It can be enjoyed as video games, as TV shows, books, movies. The entire world wholeheartedly embraced the apocalypse and sprinted towards it with gleeful abandon. Meanwhile, your Earth was crumbling all around you. You've got simultaneous epidemics of obesity and starvation. Explain that one. Bees and butterflies start to disappear. The glaciers melt. Algae blooms all around you. The coal mine canaries are dropping dead, and you won't take the hint. In every moment, there is the possibility of a better future, but you people won't believe it. And because you won't believe it, you won't do what is necessary to make it a reality. So you dwell on this terrible future, and you resign yourselves to it. For one reason, because that future doesn't ask anything of you today. Yes, we saw the iceberg, we warned the Titanic. But you all just steered for it anyway, full steam ahead. Why? Because you want to sink.
With the mimic hypocritics and exceed it all. Only in it for an instant, so we never call. My mama hasn't heard my voice, it's been this. Raise our minimum wage, so we never stray too far. Embrace the fake, so we never change, never grow to know who we really are. Out come the wolves, Wall Street count sheep, sleep good. California kings, Hollywood's Robin Hoods. We can understand what we never understood.
It's Aftermath FM.
We see government like it living and it breathing. We pay the taxes for the ceremony feeding. And And we the people get everything we believe in. We fund the war, but fuck the land we really need in it. What if we love her in return the way she loved us? What if the earth was a temple and not above us? Like something every human that lived among us. Love as a mother, a daughter, a son. What? We are the one to make it different or the same now. Every day we make the choice.
All right. I'm sorry. There you go. If you want to change the world, we could. So, and it all starts with you. So, if you want to change the world, all you got to do is change yourself. And all you got to do that is, take responsibility for where you are and be grateful for whatever it is, even if it's bad. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're going through troubles, you got problems, or whatever. It's bad. I get it. No, it could be worse, though. That's the thing. You got to be grateful that it's not any worse.
That's the theme early on that I picked up on that was cracking me up a little bit, because there's a movie I watched when I first had the video store in Las Vegas, a Swedish import movie called My Life as a Dog. It's called My Life as a Dog. A lot of people might have seen it. And it's about a kid who is like a 10-year-old kid, I think. He just gets shipped off to live with his relatives, and he doesn't know why. And I won't spoil the whole plot of the movie. But basically, it's because his mom's really sick. He doesn't know that. And so what happens is he meets all these people, has all these experiences, and along the way, he's still like dealing with this fact that everything's, going bad for him. He can't figure out why. And his recurring theme is he has this inner narrative that gets narrated in the movie, right? Well, it could be worse. I could be like this guy I read about, blah, 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 that this happened. He walked to the train station and got ran over, or that kind of thing. There's always some extreme example of how things could be worse. And the whole movie is that, about his inner narrative about, well, it could be worse. It could be like that guy, blah, 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 And it's a coping mechanism for his displacement. Are we all displaced? Is that what's going on? Like, there's so much of that in the world today, where everybody's coping mechanism is it could be worse, instead of how good it could be. Why isn't it better? And I think that's a New Year's resolution we all should have.
Yeah.
Let's make it better.
Well, and isn't that the same thing as the voting for lesser of two evils? It's the same.
Exactly
it's
that.
the same attitude, though, right?
Right, exactly.
It's the same attitude. Is we don't feel like we deserve something better. We're okay with it just being this shitty, and we don't think like we deserve something better. Brandy and Naysay, and we do. We're all valid human beings. We all deserve as much of this life as we can possibly, get in. Squeeze it in while we have this time before we make that fatal mistake, man. Like I was talking about earlier. It's that one.
Yeah, I don't feel like that, though.
As far as what?
I don't feel like I don't deserve it.
You don't?
I used to feel that way, but I don't anymore. I just sort of embrace it, but I don't think I'm deserve more than other people. It's all about balance too, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I say we don't feel like we deserve it, I think we don't. A lot of us don't. A lot of people just don't feel like they deserve for things to be great, or don't even know how great things could be, just because we get lost in the fog of our current situation that we may feel is the worst thing that could ever have happened to us. That's the big thing, is like trying to decide if it's a curse or a blessing, because going through it at the time, it may seem like a curse, but when you come out of it later, you realize, like we were saying earlier, you get the benefit of being the first guy to sail off in your little boat across the sea, and making it to the other side and then sailing back. When you get back to the thing, your journey has been is really what it was. It wasn't where your destination.
So it comes down, I think, to perspective. Isn't perspective actually a nautical term too?
It is a navigation term. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so yeah, exactly. It's because you align to the stars in back in the day when you're navigating that way, you're dependent upon that kind of thing. So it's your perspective exactly that lets you know where you were in the world, right? Because that perspective changes. Those stars look different, So, yeah, and that worked for centuries, and it still works. I mean, if everything else breaks down, it is kind of a good point, I guess, to make that perspective is what can navigate you through the world. That is actually pretty profound if you think about it. I mean, there's a real world relationship to the psychology of our lives, right?
I did a research paper when I was in college, and it was a lot of it was about perspective. It was a psychology paper, and a lot of it was about perspective, and it changed my life because it's such a, in a way, it could be a connotative word because I don't know that everybody really understands fully all the different applications of it, but getting a little philosophical here. But if you just kind of step back and take a look at what's going on and just weigh everything, you might get a better perspective on it and be able to make better decisions. And like Jimmy was saying, I think if somebody has like a kind of a negative perspective or I don't know, they feel scared or they just don't feel worthy or whatever. And I agree that there probably are a lot of people who feel like that. I've seen it for sure. But if they can get kind of a hold of that, I think it helps because you can just weigh everything and then maybe be able to see that it's not as bad as it looks or what they could do, to make it a little bit better. But that word control comes in then too, because there's so much that we cannot control. But we simply can't control everything. All we can control is how we respond to things,
Well,
and we just have to try.
A great example of how the sextant, right, is this tool we made to navigate by the stars, use celestial navigation, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody did invent this thing first, and if you know the knowledge, you can use it, and it still works today, right? But it only tells you where to go. If you in other words, if you know where you're trying to get to, you can align those things and get a set a course. But it doesn't tell you how to get there. There might be a storm in the way. There might be a change of seasons. There might be a hurricane, whatever it is, a hurricane, something that's going to crop up a month from now. It's going to take you 2 months to get to where you're trying to go. All those things, that's what you call it plotting a course, right?
It's a guide.
It's a
to
guide,
kind of guide you along.
It's just it's a reference, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's missing.
Yeah, and these people who do vision boards and they set goals and things like that. It's kind of the same thing as using a sextant if you think about it. A sextant. I never say that right.
Yeah, I know. It sounds kind of dirty. It's a sextant.
It does.
It sounds like a combination of sex and deviant, right? Sextant.
Well,
but yeah,
you're the one. You brought it up.
Well, the biggest thing as an entity, the perspective of the observer in their orientation of the situation or challenge or problem. And if you look at it through the ancient works, you find the system of mathematics there. Whether it's one perspective, the golden mean spiral, or the other one, the Fibonacci sequence. Because if we think of an allegory that a seed is planted in the dirt, depending on its orientation, is going to depend on how its root and its stem starts its growth. But within that seed, there is a basic guideline of it to go through its growth. And as Epic was talking about, when you plot a course, on how to get there, you're going from point A to point B, but you don't know if you're going to run into heavy waves or if you're going to have a storm or whatever. Just like with a seed, when it's growing, its stem or roots doesn't know the consistency of the dirt, or if there's going to be a pebble in the way, or other plants growing to choke. It's that excitement of not knowing. And how can we find a positive attitude as we experience this growth of life? Because I love cliches, and the man was upset when he lost his shoes until he met the man who lost his feet.
Ouch.
It can always be worse. It could be like that guy who lost his feet.
It can always be worse. It can, That's why, being grateful even when things aren't that good is a learned skill. It's a perspective that you need in order to change your perception. So perspective is in direct relation to perception. So as I climb up the mountain, I have a perception of the valley. But when I'm on the valley floor, I really can't tell there's a lake just over the horizon there. Until I get up
line
high,
of sight.
Until we get up high enough on the mountain.
And it takes work. You have to pay attention. You can't just, go through and not pay attention to what's going on or how you're feeling or the consequences of your actions. It all has to be like a habit. You have to habitually do it. Like you said, Jimmy, just like daily, no matter what, find gratefulness.
Well, when we come back on the top of the hour, we're going to get into Herman Hesse piece of work called Siddhartha. And Siddhartha is an Indian poem. It's a 1922 novel written by Herman Hesse that deals with the spiritual journey of self-discovery of a man named Siddhartha during a time of the Gautama Buddha. The book is Hesse's ninth novel, written in German in simple lyrical style. It was published in the U.S. in 1951. It became influential during the 1960s. Hesse dedicated the first part of the book to Roman Roland, and the second part to Wilhelm Gunter, his cousin. The word Siddhartha is made up of two Sanskrit languages. Siddha, meaning achieved, Artha was searched for, which together means he who has found meaning of existence, or he who has attained his goals. In fact, the Buddha's own name before his renunciation was Siddhartha Gautama.
Wasn't that a movie, Little Buddha, that starred Keanu Reeves? I think was based on that book.
Yeah, probably it was. I vaguely remember that coming out. I didn't partake in it. Siddhartha is about a 1/4 inch thick. You could probably read it in a couple hours, and I'm thinking that your mind movie around what goes on in the book will be way better than any Keanu Reeves joint. But I could be wrong. But depending on your own, mental capacities on that one. But I found this book to be extremely enlightening for me, in the sense that enlightenment is not illumination, right? So enlightenment is to relieve yourself of some baggage. Illumination is, at the end of your road, to get to illumination, you need enlightenment. So you have to relieve yourself of your earthly bondage in order to climb the mountain, to get the perspective so you can change your perception. And that's what Siddhartha is kind of all about, because we're not going to be out, obviously we only have another hour left, so we're not going to get into the whole book, but I'm going to get into some key points on it that I think are, they helped me a lot, just in coming to bringing things into context as far as how things lay out in a man's life or in a person's life, and the decisions that we make and the paths that we take to make things happen in our life. And and we look back, sometimes we like we were saying earlier, I mean, you can make a mistake. You can make a mistake and end up just smelling like a rose too. But Siddhartha was a seeker. He went everywhere. He was looking for somebody to be his guru, but he just couldn't find one. He couldn't find anybody that met that, space for him. He couldn't fill that space. Lots of people walk around looking for that guru. They can't fill the space. People always end up being human. That was my problem when I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I was looking for a sponsor. My sponsor would always end up being human, and so for me that was, I got rid of him, because you want your guru to walk on water, but most people are living a world, the human world, so they got to be human. So no one's going to be that guru that people seek, but everyone's seeking. Everyone wants there to be the guru. Have any of you three found a guru? And I'm not talking about Jesus.
No, that never meets the expectations. That's the whole thing, right? Like, and as much as you explore and as wild as you want to go, and as many books as you want to read, as many techniques as you want to try, there will never be somebody as good as you. Because it's your self revelation of understanding of your connection to the Godhead that is what will fulfill you. And until you find that, and many people don't, right, and probably never will, and that's including 99% of the population, right? But it's a search, right? That's what's essential. As long as you're trying, you're always improving, right? In other words, you're not subject to what do they call it, where things decline, constantly. You're not caught in the sense, you're not caught in the spiral of destruction. You're going the other direction. You're sustaining or improving. So as long as you're doing that, you're winning. That's how you win, right? It's a search. It's a constant fight against entropy, right? Mental, psychological, and spiritual, that keeps you sustained.
We got a couple minutes left, and they say, Brandy, you guys want to jump in? Gurus. I mean, I know, Brandy, I know you're a Christian, so I know you are a seeker. You've sought and you found someone, and you found a place to put your devotion in Christ. Naysay, now, sure. What about you, Naysay? Do you have some sort of a guru, or some is there some sort of a Native American person that you find to be a spiritual advisor, or your spiritual advisor?
Every single time I look in the mirror, however, the high expectations that are there, I consistently reject fulfilling them. So it's a love-hate experience. But, I mean, I've searched, I've read, ancient texts. I talked to elders, and I have what we call a Niawe'e. And this is the elder that gave me my Anishinaabe name. And he was my advisor, the one I would go to for guidance. And then when he passed, then you try to find another one. But like you said, that challenges that we also carry these high expectations, not only for these gurus, but for ourselves. Because there is nobody that will beat the crap out of Jimmy like Jimmy will. And same with myself. I beat the crap out of myself all the time for not living up to the expectations that I place upon myself.
Well, I guarantee you, how no matter how good you are at beating up yourself, your mom is way better. Your mom will always be way better at beating you up than you will be, because she knows every single mistake you ever made, and she can throw it up in your face anytime you think you're big and bad. So don't you worry.
Never forget either.
Never forget, as long as she shall live.
Mommy and daddy can always affect you.
That's right.
Yep.
What are you saying, Brandy?
Said she used to change your diaper too.
That's right. That's what I mean. She knows everything. So don't get smart around your ma. She'll do you that. Make sure you're nice to your mom. Bring her some flowers tomorrow. It's New Year's. Don't forget to call your ma out there if you got a ma to call, or your pa, whoever's left. Call somebody. And somebody out there is lonely, man. Believe me. There's lots of lonely people, man, on these holiday seasons, especially now. As people are being ostracized for their choices, which shouldn't even be anybody's business. This is like voting. When you go in the booth, you close the thing. It's because how you vote is nobody's business. What your religion is, nobody's business. Everybody's got their own thing. So we got people. Let me see here. We got listeners in Turkey right now, Japan, Australia, South Africa. Some people in the UK. Got 15 people up in Canada. What's up, everybody? Good to have you. We're slow grinding out of 2021, and we're trying to find some light at the end of the tunnel tonight. Try to figure out, hey, maybe there's Maybe there's a book here might help you out. When we come back, we're going to get into it. It's top of the hour. It's time to take a break. We'll be right back.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
And to celebrate, in the month of December, Ground Zero and Aftermath.fm are offering magnificent deals for listeners. Check it out. For the entire month of December, fans of Ground Zero can get an exclusive membership for only $49 for the year. And that's not all. Premium memberships are only $79 for the year. Need some stocking stuffers? Well, we have something for that too. A premium friends and family plan is just $129 for the year. All memberships include access to all of Ground Zero's archived shows. That's thousands of hours of Ground Zero on demand. You'll have complete access to the document libraries and research groups, and you'll have full participation in a monthly Zoom chat with the man himself, Clyde Lewis. So what are you waiting for? Come on over and take advantage of these great Christmas deals right now. For more information, head on over to aftermath.media right now. Again, that's aftermath.media.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific. Right after Clyde Lewis, you'll find us right here. It's in the microcosm.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin. Let me tell you about heartache and the loss of God. Wandering, wandering in hopeless night. Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here we is stone, immaculate.
Softly touched Siddhartha's arm and said, "Ask the river about it, my friend. Hear it laugh about it. Would you actually believe that you had committed your foolish acts in order to spare your son from committing them too? And could you, in any way, protect your son from samsara? How could you? By means of teachings, prayer, admonition? My dear, have you entirely forgotten that story containing so many lessons, that story about Siddhartha, a Brahman's son, which you once told me here on this very spot? Who has kept the Samana Siddhartha safe from samsara, from sin, from greed, from foolishness? Were his father's religious devotion, his teacher's warnings, his own knowledge, his own search able to keep him safe? Which father, which teacher had been able to protect him from living his life for himself, from soiling himself with life, from burdening himself with guilt, from drinking the bitter drink for himself, from finding his path for himself? Would you think, my dear, anybody might perhaps be spared from taking this path? That perhaps your little son would be spared because you love him, because you would like to keep him safe, because...
There's a little chunk from Siddhartha. So, now, did you say you read Siddhartha, or did you just see that that little Buddha movie? They say.
I've heard of the Buddha and trying to read up on some of the Hindu texts and the ancient works of India, Sanskrit and stuff, but the name Hess, I think I recall that was a basis for that movie.
So
the movie was fairly decent.
Yeah, he's basically on a quest. He's searching. And and the thing is that it's funny because of this piece that I just played here. The person was talking about him being safe in the search, and as long as you're going from point A to point B, you're not really here or there. You're sort of in between. You're in that space, and that's the space that Siddhartha finds himself in. So after going around and seeing a bunch of different spiritual advisors, he still finds himself, he decides that none of these people are going to satisfy him. He's going to go off on his own, and he goes off on his own. He goes and he's walking and he's doing his thing, and he comes to a river, and it's wide. He has to go across, and he needs to get across the river. So there's somebody there. It's a ferryman. And the ferryman's got a boat and a rope, and they take the boat across the river, and he helps Siddhartha go across the river. And so they meet. Siddhartha stays there for a bit. There's some interaction, and Siddhartha moves on. And so as he's walking, he comes on this oasis. And when he comes up to this oasis, he notices this beautiful woman with green eyes and olive skin, and she's stunningly beautiful, and she's some sort of a royal capacity, and someone such as him shouldn't even gaze upon her, but she's taken by him, and but she can't allow herself to it to be known. But he becomes infatuated with her. Her lips he describes as sweet figs, this and that and the other thing. So she basically looks at him and can tell that he has nothing. And she says, well, someone such as you who has nothing, could never, talk to me, basically. And she goes, when if you get, put yourself in a better position at that time, come and contact me. So Siddhartha then, goes off, and he can't stop thinking about her. And so he goes and goes to this city, and he goes to the marketplace, and he finds the merchant there that's the biggest, best merchant in the area, and goes and tries to secure himself a job now so that he can, adorn himself with the accoutrements to be able to come and talk to this princess that he discovered. So the merchant is a wealthy man. He's got influence across the land, and so basically Siddhartha comes to him for a job. And so typically this merchant is in a position of power because he has something you want. And so he can basically manipulate people to get what he wants and being a salesman. But he can't manipulate Siddhartha because as he tries to manipulate Siddhartha, Siddhartha informs him that he doesn't really need anything from him. That Siddhartha in and of himself has everything he needs. In other words, what he tells him is he knows how to breathe in and out. And he knows how to meditate. And so he doesn't need food, he doesn't need anything, and so there's nothing that this merchant has that Siddhartha needs, but Siddhartha would like to come and work here. Eventually Siddhartha gets a job there. He becomes one of the best salesmen. He makes money, he travels all over the place. He becomes a drunk. He gets, his life, basically turns to shit after a long, drawn-out situation. And he ends up almost dead. And he crawls out of this city, and he crawls back, and he finds himself at this river, which was the same river he was crossing when he started the journey. He finds the river. He almost dies. He drags himself back down to the point where he crossed the river. The ferryman's still there. The ferryman comes across. He gets Siddhartha. He brings Siddhartha back and nurses him back to health and lets him live there. And there's a transformation that takes place with Siddhartha at that point, which is he realizes something important about the river. And that the river is the river has the sound of life, and the river, ebb and flow, such and such and so forth, was really basically just the description of his life. And so he really, in the end, Siddhartha becomes the ferryman. So, helping other people cross that river. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, without us having to go through the audiobook, because I haven't set aside certain parts in here for us to check out tonight, so I figured I'd just give you a quick breakdown of the storyline. So there it is. You can check that book out for yourself if you'd like to, and I highly recommend it. I didn't do it justice. I was, like I said, I'm just brushing over the top of what it's really about. And it's really the interior dialectic, the contrasting poles in a man or in a person about this or that, making decisions, which way we go. Just that one random meeting in Siddhartha's life. He just happened to be going by that oasis at that particular moment, just happened to see that woman, and it caused him to veer off this path for spiritual attainment and go directly into the material world so that he could satisfy his own desire.
I thought you did a good storytelling moment there about the book, for sure. I mean, and that's what Nese was saying is what I always thought when he first brought it up on the show, is the idea of it being the other Siddhartha Gautama, right? Or Gautama, rather, who is Buddha, right? Where he was born in this royal court. He was sheltered from the world. He lived inside this palace and had nothing but the best of everything. And one day went outside and saw that there's poverty in the world and that people live differently, and became what we know as Buddha today. And that's Siddhartha. And so there's that story, which is probably the basis for naming this protagonist in the story you describe as this. It's like Carlos Castaneda in a way, right? To me, I mean, when I hear the story, it's very much like that this inner journey of the person who didn't, in the course of the novel, understand his real place, right? Until he realized that he had gone off the path, right? and ended up finding his place as a ferryman, right? They're great stories, and I thought you did a good telling of it. But yeah, the story of Siddhartha as Buddha is one most people, I think, might be the first to glom onto and think of when you hear that context. Oh, Siddhartha, yeah, I know Siddhartha, because I learned of it first as a teenager, living up in the mountains out in Cuyamaca State Park, and my neighbor, good friend's mom was a collector of all these books like that, and but the esoteric literature, and so I read that, and that was my first introduction to who Siddhartha was, right? But the book was there too, the one you describe, and I don't know if I actually read it. Like I said, it was a small book. Actually, it wasn't a long novel in any way. It was something you could read in a day. I got caught up in the Carlos Castaneda things at the time. I was reading those, and then I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead and all that stuff. Yeah, I was a quirky kid, I guess, at 14 reading that stuff. But there's some confusion, I guess, in where the Siddhartha story is and what the historical figure is.
Well, one thing that I find incredible is that epic journey of the hero, and the challenges that arise in that path of life. And it goes back to earlier when we're talking about, recognizing the cycle, plotting a course, selecting your direction from the observation perspective of the orientation. And in that journey we have, interesting how nothing can interrupt a cycle like adding another cycle. And if we step back and generalize, what cycle are we following? I would say the cycle of the psychos that have socially conditioned us from the cradle to the grave to be caught within that prison of time, where tick tock tock tick, it just keeps going. And right now there's Zulu time, the prime meridian, where they're orientating us to that prison of time. And here we are on the precipice of celebrating it tomorrow night, because there's another resolution, another cycle that is going to have a mark put on it. And here we go around again. And it's exciting.
You got me waxing all philosophical here. I was imagining the concept of the original splash of a new piece of knowledge that hits the world, that changes mankind. Like that pebble hitting the flat surface of the pond. And so that first splash is huge, right? And everybody sees it, everybody goes to it, is their attention, and they see it, right? And then as it ripples forward, each one of those ripples is expanding, but it's based on the source, but it's a different wave going forward, if that makes sense. And the illusion is that the ones closest to the original entry point, the concentric circles from that original splash point, are the ones closest to the imparting of that knowledge. But the reality is, it's the one that's the farthest away, is the first remnants of the first splash of those ripples on the pond. And it's like, that is pretty profound in a way. When you were telling the story, I don't know why I thought that way, but it's true that a lot of times we get caught up in trying to get closer to the source, looking back in time, not realizing we are riding the ripple of time that we're on, which is the one that is the original ripple of that splash. And it's our life now that matters. So, yeah, I think that's pretty profound.
Yeah, you got me wrapped up in it too, because then it's definitely the exponential rate of the wave in its pattern and how it continues on. And there we are again, caught up in that, as above, so below, the microcosm, the macrocosm, where it is just basically waves that are occurring, on some perspective of the electromagnetic. And so when we recognize those waves, and then we can adjust to that wave, then hang 10 and ride it. Maybe you're a long boarder or a short boarder, but that quick cut is always exhilarating, depending on how big that wall is behind you.
It's right. It's one of those things that really is profound, because if you think about it, it's only that first wave from the initial entry point of the splash that is almost virtually guaranteed to reach the shore. That shore representing our world, our consciousness, the solid earth, right, that we walk on. And so all the ones that go back, that when you look at those concentric rings going back to the original splash point, those are the weaker ones that will not reach the shore. So in a way, it's riding the wave, that analogy to surfing, the catching the wave and riding it, right, is staying with the truth of the real thing, of the real energy that was put into our world. You're riding it, you're in it. When you leave it to look for where its source was, I mean, well, that's good to know, right? You're not riding the wave anymore, which is an analogy for not living, right, in a way. It sounds pretty, I would say that sounds pretty bad, actually. Maybe I shouldn't put it that way. But the idea that when you leave to look at where the wave came from, you're not riding the wave anymore. I guess that's the best way to put it. And the biggest exhilaration you'll get in life is riding the wave that's right there. Sorry, I was leaving space for comments there. What was the
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think that was the longest pause I've ever heard on the air.
Sorry about that.
See, that's what happens when old Jimmy steps away for a cup of coffee. Dead
We were
air.
all in our deep in thought. We lost ourselves.
I know. Wow. You guys are heavy, man. You guys are heavy. And let's just say, it's the night. Tonight is the night. 2021 is over. And let me just say, tonight on Into the Microcosm on this show is going to be an extravaganza, a New Year's Eve extravaganza. Let's test out the phones, man. 626-999-4761. 626-999-4761. Give us a call. Let's test out these phones, see if they're working for tomorrow night. Make sure that we get the ball rolling. Thanks, Chad. If you can, that'd be great, man. Really appreciate it. And so that is the direct address to it. My PayPal is over Into the Microcosm, Jimmy G and Strike Zone. If you'd like to support, please do come on down. You can find podcasts wherever podcasts can be found, and you'll be able to find this show and all our other shows over on Spreaker, iTunes, all over the place. Wherever you find your podcast, help yourself to a heap and helping of our hospitality. We got some stuff behind the paywall that you don't see, but that's commercial free, and that's part of being a member. So if you want to be a member, step on down. I think there's a special running at least. Yeah, that was good, Axel. At least before, I think tomorrow is their New Year's Day is the last day. So tonight's the last night of that special. So you mosey on over there, man. Get yourself a chunk of that special before it's all gone. I think it's almost like cheesecake in the green room. It lasts about 30 seconds and then it's gone for that, and that's it. You had your chance, you blew it. You got to move quick. It's like we were saying earlier, eh? So hey, everybody's waiting for the big Twilight Zone marathon, aren't they? I think Billy's going to be here tomorrow night, too, or tonight. A bunch of people are going to stop by, say hello. And, yeah, that was interesting. The interesting reverse speech that Clyde did with Mr. Oates. So I haven't heard from Rio since last week, so I'm not sure if he's in New York or where he's at, or if he's going to be here tomorrow night or not.
Lost to VR?
Yeah, he's lost to VR.
He probably melted from the heat out here. It was so dang hot, poor guy.
No, I haven't. Solos. Not yet. No. Yeah, so I don't know. You haven't seen him either? He hasn't said, hey, Brandy, let me come over and get a cup of coffee with you?
Mm-mm.
Well, maybe he will. You never know. He's a roller. He's here, he's there, he's gone. He's in New York, he's Texas, he goes. Wherever he goes, it just, he moves. He goes. And just remember, go check out this guy. Oh, now the dude's got 5 subscribers. Right on. All right, so 4 people cruised over. Systems of Control. Don't forget. Go check the dude's channel out. He's into it, man. He really wants to get people's to understand the systems of control. Here, let's do a quick recap
about systems of control. That you create a system of control that people must obey. You lead others with your system of control in compliance with the great system of control, which lifts you up and sets you free. Here we have the Antichrist system of control. And now I'm going to show you an example of an opposing system of control. See how it's upside down. This is a good system of control that is in compliance with the great system of control. This is an opposing system of control.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
In the month of December, Ground Zero and Aftermath.fm are offering magnificent deals for listeners. Check it out. For the entire month of December, fans of Ground Zero can get an exclusive membership for only $49 for the year. And that's not all. Premium memberships are only $79 for the year. Need some stocking stuffers? Well, we have something for that too. A premium friends and family plan is just $129 for the year. All memberships include access to all of Ground Zero's archived shows. That's thousands of hours of Ground Zero on demand. You'll have complete access to the document libraries and research groups, and you'll have full participation in a monthly Zoom chat with the man himself, Clyde Lewis. So what are you waiting for? Come on over and take advantage of these great Christmas deals right now. For more information, head on over to aftermath.media right now. Again, that's aftermath.media.
What happened to King Buffalo? That's kerosene. going off the reservation, they say. I'm off the res. Hey, it's New Year's Eve. Maybe we'll just stay on right now until tomorrow. We'll stay on right now on YouTube from now all the way until tomorrow. Let's do a money bomb. It's an Itch of the Microcosm money bomb. We'll donate all the money that we get on the money bomb. Let me see. Let me think of a good charity. You know, there's a place here in, I better not get into it because then I'll be stuck doing it. All right, I'm not going to tell you the charity because then I'll get stuck doing it.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a money bomb.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could I placate to my ego a little bit, Jimmy?
Please do, yeah. Hey, Don, what's up?
So I am a disabled, 100% service-connected veteran. I'm living with Gulf War illness. Not this last September, but the previous September, I rode my wheelchair across the state of Minnesota, and we have a YouTube page. It's Rolling, the number 4 US, and we made a documentary of this ride, and we're right at the end of getting the documentary finished. We're working on the sound of it right now, but we're trying to raise some money to do some graphics. And so if anybody has a extra shekel or ruble or whatever.
So where can they find you? So they go to your channel and they subscribe, and there's a thing over there, or there's a link where they can make a donation?
Yep. There's a little mini trailer of the documentary.
Uh-huh.
Again, it's Rolling, the number 4 US on YouTube. And there's 3-4 videos in there that kind of give a little representative of me. There's one that I double dog dare people to check out on there.
Oh, nice. Well, hey, why don't you guys jump in, because I got to just throw a message real quick over to Dr. Kevin McCarran. Go ahead and jump in, Epic Journeyman. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so this idea of the cultural relevance, perhaps, through different societies, and the verbal, passing on of knowledge that went on for generations before the last 100 years. It's quite, well, we can even say 200 years, but really it's 150 years since the advent of the radio wire, stuff like that, right? Was everything, it was everything. And that's why cultures existed. It wasn't just because of their architecture, which made them live beyond them. It wasn't just because of books they wrote or things that were taught in school. It's because of what they had at home and the people around them and the passing on, of that knowledge. And it's the fact that that's somewhat missing now. Do you think that's why we're in a state of flux? Like, what I mean by this is, do you think that is why it's easier to manipulate people than it was in the past? Because the foundation, the touchstone of that link to the past is passed on that way, is missing. Or is there something different? I'm interested with your concept.
If we reflect on the advancement of the technology that has occurred, and we look at it historically, like, back in the day, the minstrels, the traveling minstrels, they were basically the town criers and the storytellers and the news. And then they would also be like traveling acting troupes, and they would do plays and little skits and stuff that would be a perspective of historical accuracies or inaccuracies. And then as it progressed, all of a sudden they find out about movable type. And then when you write down these perspectives, then you find out there is a tool of sharing knowledge, data, information. Whether it's true and accurate would depend on those that are printing it. And And then you find out that some of these writers would subversively put in their works, read between the lines and see the allegory of, anarchist or anti-government or anti-this, that, or the other. But then also you have that passing down of these historical legends, mythos, where the storyteller of the village would share, the fairy tales, the Grimm fairy tales, where they're using it as a tool of teaching or of education. And then that progression of today, where it's rapid fire, real-time news, whether it's true or not, depending on the perspective of the observer, and look at that manipulation.
Well, there's a very significant event that happened back in the 1800s whenever papers started becoming printed. They weren't printed to share the truth. They were funded by, like you say, the powers that should not be actually paid them to write these stories that weren't necessarily reflecting the truth. It was, a bit of propaganda. And people did not know that, though. They didn't know that these stories weren't telling the truth, and people still don't know because the mainstream media is complicit in that. They're continuing to just shape it the way that they're being paid to shape it, and that's why you have them all saying the same thing in their newscasts. They're using the same phrases and terms. And, excuse me, I'm sorry. And especially the people who've grown up under this now with the internet, it's just really easy to go in and change a story. And if you don't like it, you just shut it off. So the way that we've been shaped, that's where the technology, I think, has really affected us too.
Well, and Jimmy shared last night with Epic a very, very profound selected word, the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Who is writing the narrative, and why is the narrative written, for what outcome?
Right, for what purpose, and do people even really understand what narrative means? Because they'll throw that term around. It's telling a story. It's, and maybe, like you said, it's true or not true. We have to vet it.
It's the most amazing thing to me that the idea that the storytelling has taken, it's been crystallized, right, into the written form, which is a good thing because it preserves it, but it's also a bad thing. So this is it's an argument in philosophy students will know this. It's like a philosophy 101 thing that I didn't take philosophy. I just learned it later on. It happens to be where Socrates and Plato are arguing, right, about this, because Socrates taught Plato. And Plato was of the mind that you should go ahead and write everything down because you might lose it somehow, right? The people that are telling the stories with this oral tradition. And we need to touch on oral tradition a little bit here, how important it was and how important it should still be in society. We're talking about things being passed on, whether it be from the family or from anywhere, from a culture, individually through the storytelling of individuals, right? And how meticulous it had to be. That's what's lost, is that people don't understand that oral tradition, the people who were I call them conveyors of that knowledge, imparted to everyone else, they were held to such a high standard that it could not get a word wrong. Like they'd be chastised and be punished for getting a word wrong if they told it wrong. We have books today where it's in print, but print could be changed, and that's the whole point, right, that Socrates was making. So the idea was that oral tradition is superior to written word that Plato was propagating because the written word can be changed. Somebody can control the books of the future, the written word, right? Because it lacks the context. But it's not just the context, and this is what the point Socrates was making was that it's the inflection in the tone is how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's one thing to say, I'm making something up here, but let's say we tell World War II. You say, the Allies stormed the beach of Normandy and killed the Nazis who were oppressing the people there, right? In some kind of newsreel voice, right? But if you say it another way, say, the Allies came to the Nazi shores and they killed the Nazis. You know what I mean? It's how you say it. Makes all the difference. And if you lack that context, that kind of emotion, that kind of spirit behind it, and it's only the written word that's subject to interpretation, then it could be changed. It could be added upon, expounded upon, and directly changed for a purpose. And that's the world we live in today, where it turns out, as much as I love what I've seen from Plato, he was wrong. Socrates was right, I think.
Well, the Anishinaabe people, we had our historians or our storytellers, and we utilized what we call birch bark scrolls. And the winter time was when these scrolls would be taken out and utilized for telling stories. If you know about birch bark, that when it dries, it will roll up. And so then what they did is they would soak them in water, and then once it got so saturated, then you could just unroll it, and on the birch bark scrolls would be little symbols, or I guess you could call them petroglyphs or hieroglyphs or iconography, semantics. And these little symbols would have incredible stories to them. And then as they would share these stories, the storytellers would pay attention to the children of how enthusiastic they were about it and how well they were able to reflect the story or repeat the story. And then you would more or less be tapped as the next storyteller. And so then you would be kind of groomed and taught all of these birch bark scrolls, because originally we had copper scrolls, but the great copper scrolls were larger and a little bit more challenging of moving them around. And so it was easier just to take a birch bark scroll and copy the symbols. And then that was used, for the more or less books or stories or whatnot, and it is interesting, of how you say something, again, allegory or metaphor. We hear the words that people say, we don't hear their meanings of the words. And in today's world, if we look at the transformation of words and how they're literally changing words' meanings from, practically 1 year to the next. The latest one that has been bothering me is when people are like, oh, I haven't seen you in a minute. And it might have been like 2 years. Or it'd be like, oh, I'll call you in a minute. And it's like, okay, 60 seconds? Or is there a different dictionary you comply with?
The power of words, right? I mean, and that's what's been used against us. I mean, as a human race. I mean, I'm talking nationally, not talking politically. I'm talking in general. The way that words and their meanings have changed over time because of that lack of oral tradition and that meticulous way that the ruler hitting your knuckles of a nun if you were in Catholic school, or if you were in some kind of case where you were one of the intellectuals of the day in ancient Greece or something, where they would punish you for getting it wrong, right? I mean, the words matter and their meaning mattered. You had to say it right. The inflection had to be right, And so what's been manipulated against us world over, right, is that words are subtly over time changing. It's not just the inflection and the intent; it's their actual meaning over time has been changed, and for political purposes many times, or for purposes of advantage. It doesn't necessarily have to be political. To just change what that word means, But like I remember in the 70s. Remember people who are old enough, I hate to give my age here on this one, but people know I'm a little bit older, right? Yeah, that's bad, man. Oh, that's bad, right? Bad was good, right? When he said that was a 70s thing. That's bad shit, man. That is some bad, but that was good. That meant that was like it blew your mind. It was like, oh, that's so cool. Like it'd be like something like a well-modeled car that you painted the right way or something. The hot rod or something. Oh, it's bad. Well, it's so bad it's good. And these are the kind of things that over time, because oral tradition doesn't change. The younger generation still looks to the elders for the meaning of the word, the meaning of everything that is said, and it's passed on that way. So when they say that, well, bad isn't bad anymore, is it? Right? Even if it's not, they know a little bit about it. Of course, it's not the same two things. But then the next generation is diluted some, and they don't have the context of that first split, right? They just have the context of the second one, not knowing the first one. And now bad does mean good or doesn't mean bad anymore. And those are the kind of things, that's an extreme example, but where these subtle things that should be known to everybody, we just take for granted, get lost over time because oral tradition faded. And I think it's important.
Now, and now that we have these text messaging where we just get a little segment of words, thank goodness for emojis so we can have a better understanding of the feeling of it.
Yeah, no, that's right. If not knowing, it's almost like it's become a sense of punctuation, right? Like when you say I'm laughing instead of crying, right? Because they can mean the same inflection thing.
Yeah, when you're typing, it sits very flat. Emoticon saved it.
So somebody reading our works. So someday in the future, there are going to be hard copy things printed by the NSA or whatever they ever said. Let's say, for example, I'm just using that as a terrible example, actually, but something like that. That all electronic data will be lost in the future. So the asteroid hits, and 10,000 years from now, the civilization that might emerge, who was lucky enough to be down in New Zealand or whatever in some cave, they come out and they start digging stuff up, and they've had their own culture develop ever since. They've rebooted all these things on their own, like oral tradition and all these things, because they had to, and made a whole technology different that we know. They don't understand our technology, but they find our written transcripts that are saved in some weird vault in Utah, right? And this is a huge archaeological find for them. And they go and they look at it, and they look at all these texts from Twitter. What are they going to think of us? What are they going to think of us? You know what I mean? they're going to look at it and go, oh, no wonder the civilization collapsed.
They talk with their thumbs.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's. I don't think that people really understand. Like, the technology we have has degraded us. It hasn't made us better. It's degraded us because context no longer is important as the immediacy of something, right?
It's almost like the setup, like they're purposely setting us up in the dumbing down of the entity. So then if there was a semantics reset, or if there was a asteroid strike, that it would be easier to control those instantly because, people can't even print very well anymore. People have no idea what cursive is. You could write cursive now and give it to a younger person and say, read this. And they're like, I can't.
Yeah. They are starting to teach it again, though, in schools.
That's good to know.
Yeah. I don't know how broad spread that is, but I have talked to children who are learning it.
The fact that it was even taken away. I mean, so I learned I learned Latin and Greek a little bit growing up in school, but I learned more about Greek than I did Latin. But the thing because I tried to learn the Greek language and stuff, and I was into sciences, and because almost every animal, is into zoology and stuff, and so what happened was, it's important to know that because almost everything's named after Latin names, right? When you're naming a genus, species, whatever, right? So it was important to get that context of that. But it's a lost language. They always talk about Latin being a lost language, but what people don't understand is that that's the language of the Romans, right? So why is that a lost language? It ran the earth for at least 400 to 500 years, not counting the Byzantine Empire, 430 years, I think, right, something like that, of actual rule, and then became the Byzantine Empire and all this stuff. So how did Latin become a lost language? I mean, it's still taught in Jesuit universities and it's still taught to the clergy, but it's not something people speak.
Yeah.
Yes, in the legal system, exactly.
Well, I think you just nailed it there. I'm sure it probably had something to do with not being able to read the Bible or learn about the Bible. I bet that's
yeah, I think that's right. I do think you're right on that. I think that when the medieval times in Europe, in particular England, the British Isles, and in France, they were opposing each other in their constant war. All that information became hidden away by the clergy, by the church, right? The church was the only source of knowledge that could interpret the Latin of the Bible, the Vulgate, right? So it was hidden away, cached away, and interpreted only by the people authorized to say what it said, not you able to read it yourself. And the printing press, of course, freed that up when the Bible became printed. But so why is Latin a lost language? I mean, it really is important to think about how many centuries, right?
I mean, and how many applications there actually is. I mean, even music, all the terminology is in Latin. Just basic stuff every day, Latin.
Yeah.
Based.
It's the root of almost every word. Yeah. So there's like three kinds of words in linguistics, right? Well, not linguistics specialists, I shouldn't say that, but there's things that are built up from the Latin base. There are things that are built up from a pictograph kind of thing, Cyrillism. No, not Cyrillism. I'm sorry, that's not the right word. Cyrillic, kind of thing, which the Soviets use and things that part of the world. But there's also this what's it called? The one that most Asiatic nations use for their things. So they're based on basically visual oriented pictograms, right?
Oh, like kanji and things like that.
Yeah. So Japanese, Chinese, Korean, whatever, right? And so this logarithmic, that's not the right word either. Logarithmic, this stacking upon one thing to another Latin kind of base, where things are started and finished in a way that progresses with an almost mathematical certainty, right? In rule. That's all. Latin is the base of that, right? So how can you forget the language that started that? I guess that's what I'm trying to say in a terrible way. But that kind of progressive way of A and E sounds like this, with B added to this, and a sentence mean this, in this kind of progressive way, right? Of setting forth language is based on Latin entirely, right? So that is the basis of this. So how can you say that? Not always a lost language, people can speak it. It's not lost truly at the time, but the fact that nobody actually speaks it. What changed? What happened? What happened? I mean, that is one of those great mysteries to me. Like, why did that not be spoken? When did it stop being spoken as a language? Just a hatred of the Byzantines?
That in itself is where we recognize language as a power. Check your spelling, because your words are power. And if we look historically at the English language, it is insignificant in its existence in comparison to these other ancient languages. My people, the Anishinaabe people, we claim that there's evidence here that we have lived in North America for over 60,000 years. And so our language, is that old, where we have words that literally mean woolly mammoth or saber-toothed tiger, and not in a past tense mannerism, more like run, there's a saber-toothed tiger. You know, so
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Good one. You know, so then when you think of these languages of ancient times, you know, the power and the energy that is behind them in comparison to English in itself, I think this is the manipulation, you know, part of the whole manipulation.
English, motherfucker, do you?
They take our power from us.
Speak it! English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
No, yeah, no, I was trying to think what was called these different styles of languages. Like there was a whole series on Nova and PBS called "The Mind" was the first one, or no, the brain. The brain was the first one. The second was called "The Mind," and they had an accompanying series of companion books you could order. You get the books, right? So there were these nice little hardcover books that represented each episode and expounded upon what they were describing in the episode on Nova, right? And the second version, the one of the mind, had a whole thing about language, and it was based upon peoples of the world and where they came from and how they developed their language and how their language was based upon the way the peoples of that area perceived the world. So one was about this idea of time and space. So this one language they highlighted was where it was based upon the idea that it was about coordinates in time and space. Like that mountain is over there, that tree is over there, and everything in the language portrayed that. And that was Aboriginal languages of ancient Australia. Well, not even ancient, current Australia at the time. But, you know, they had we saw that remnants of that. And they talked about how you had these languages that were based on imagery that were predominant in Asia, right? So you had Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, which and the whole point of the show, and how in the Germanic languages and Latin-based languages of the West, they had this progressive language where it was built upon things in a logical, almost mathematical order, right? How it progressed. And so it was how the thought processes of the people in those regions and the mind that they developed because of growing up in those regions and learning that language changed their perspective of the world. I thought it was really profound, actually. I thought it was a great series. It came out in the early 90s, I want to say, maybe the late 80s. And they canceled that show because they said it was racist somehow. I bought those books. I had that books. I had the whole companion book series. And I thought how silly that is, right? Because that's obviously true. You know what I mean? It's obviously true. Like the way that you learn your language will affect the way you perceive the world.
We're out of time, man. We got to go. We'll see you tonight. Make sure you come by. We'll get these phones figured out. I paid the phone bill, so I don't know why you can't get in. But people are trying to get in. I'm sorry. I don't know what's up. I'll try to get it figured out tomorrow. So, hey, Naysay, thanks for being here. Brandy?
You're welcome.
Make sure you come back tonight, everybody.
I'm going to try.
And we'll bring in the new year the right way, man. All right, we'll see you guys.
To the call of the night, and have fun tonight, but not from afar.
All right, we're done.
We're done.
Sweet.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate that. And like I said, Brent, I don't know what's up, man. I paid that bill. So I didn't even do it on purpose. I had like $10 on my card, and they took the money out. I got the receipt. So I'll find out what's happening. Thanks, Cool Daddy-O. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Solos. Thanks, Chad again. Thanks, Brent. Thanks, Peppy. Thanks, Dawn. So, yeah. Thanks, Marty. All right, you guys. You ready to go? I gotta get going, man. I'm so hungry right now. I'm about to chew my fingertips off.
I got some.
Don't go daughter party on us.
All right, you guys. We'll see you later, eh?
All right, thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Have you talked to Kev?
No, I haven't talked to him in a couple days. No, but he's back home.
No, he's not. He was brought back to the hospital.
Oh, yeah, that I haven't talked to him then. No, I sent him a message earlier yesterday. And he sent me a message back. He didn't say anything, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'll keep you on the loop when I hear. All right, you guys have a beautiful New Year's. Probably be listening tomorrow night. Right. Toodles.
Give us a call tomorrow night. Give us a call.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Good to see you, Nathan.
Bye.
Bye. Toodles,
Good to see you, Brandy. Good to see you, Nancy.
All right. Well, I'll let Kev McCarron know then, because I was just told him I just went and checked Kev's thing and I didn't see anything on there. So Kev McCarron just sent me a message saying that Bill Bean put a message out or something, which I didn't get, but I don't know if I'm not subscribed to Bill Bean, so I don't know. We'll see. I apologize if that's the case, man. I don't know. We'll see you guys, man. That's a bummer. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Yeah.
Good night, everybody.